Okay, we're up to radio calibration now. I was going to go through a big long spill. I felt I had to explain to you why the radio config was so hard to figure out for me, but I'm going to try to encapsulate it here. If you go down through all of this, you find nothing out about where your modes are. If you go over to their manuals and go through the first manual, you don't find anything about what channel the modes should be on. Honest, this is down through here. Radio calibration is what we're trying to finish up here, right down to where we get to this. So I have to set up switches on my radio for the mission planner radio calibration to see move. I mean, I don't have them turned on the radio. They're not being output by the radio. So I need to know what channels I want to do that on. I don't really feel like I can do all the channels like this. I'm not sure why 15 comes up there, but it does. Anyway, I was going to do 1 through 4 and then a modes channel. And I decided to do an RTL, RTH channel. So 6 total. So I knew that 1, 2, 3, and 4 needed to be calibrated. I don't have any problem with that. And that's what I've done already, actually. But I didn't do any of the rest. And I've been looking everywhere. And if we go down through here, you have completed the RDO mission planner setup. No, you haven't. I can think of all sorts of things you need to do after this. Return to launch, setup, fail safes. Stuff they did that I've already looked in their parameters that come with this, and I know that this, and I know they did it. So we'll keep going here real quick, because this goes into the assembly of the airplane physically now through the rest of part 1. If we go to part 2, you can go to them off your hard drive or here. This whole thing is more physical build. Another thing, this shows on this that there's inputs 1 through 9 and RCN. I only find 1 through 8 physically on mine. I don't have a 9th one to plug anything in that I might want to plug in, as in a pan or tilt servo. Continuing with the build, right down through the control horns and linkages. How to put the wing on. Installing the latch. Installing propellers. The build is complete. You may install your decal and or the landing gear according to your personal preference. That is all. So I looked through the FX405 for anything that might have to do with modes. You do get a note here about flight modes, and it does say that you can configure them on your radio on a 3 or 6 position switch, and then it shows you 3. Don't tell you what channel. I suppose you can talk to the flight controller on channels that it actually uses on its output. Let's say 5. Or let's go in and look at something that's actual real quick. So I would imagine, this channel 5 is for the tilt motor front left. I would imagine this flight controller and the way the firmware and stuff is set up in it, even if you use channel 5 for modes, it would accept that input from the radio receiver through CRSF into the flight controller on the front end of the flight controller for it to change modes. But I don't think that would affect its output on channel 5 that's doing the tilt motor. But that's just theory of mine. I don't have proofs of that at all. So what I see according to this list is channel 10's not being used, channel 12's not being used, and I think the ELRS receiver only puts out channels 1 through 12. It won't put out 13, 14, 15, or 16. So, went all the way through here, talks about a lot of things, even RSSI. You may be greeted with bad compass health when connecting to Mission Planner. This is because the GPS isn't powered via USB. We figured that out for ourselves. Neither is the receiver powered from USB power on this. Tells you how to see that the GPS is locked with some lights down in here. Additional info here. Well, that's just about the flight controller. It's not about how they configured it. Receiver parameter settings goes through here again. Talks about no board alt config needed for S-Bus, PPM, iBus. But for ELRS and CRSF, board alt config 1, serial protocol 3 for serial 6. This right here, as I've said before, is serial 6, this serial 1, serial 2. And that's the end of this. So, I came back to this. Or actually, I came back right here, went down to this gentleman, build video, and over in it, I've just forwarded up, kinda. He's already finished the physical build, etc., etc., etc. He's talking about some of the things that can be changed in the stuff, just like I have. This comes pre-configured, close and workable. Pilot's, all of it's very, very flexible if you understand what's going on. He has some suggestions here. He has some others. Well, he put his flight mode on channel 8. Now again, I've never been told this, I've never been played with it, but it's my suspicion that you could put the input to the flight controller on channel 8, but it wouldn't affect this output to motor 1. But I don't want to do that, just because I've never had anybody tell me things work like that. I've never seen it anywhere, never seen a video on it, never seen anybody mention it. After I get this up and running and working and stuff, yeah, I can move the modes up there and see if it affects motor 1's RPM and stuff when I change modes. And I can prove these things for myself, but at this point, I had never had so few seemingly channels available to me. I know I can't touch these first 4. So few channels available to me because they're already signed, seemingly, that I was really at a loss. There was always some completely open, front end and output side. So to me, I've only got 2 here, 10 and 12. So that's my kind of and I'm not going to go. I had to go up through 15 minutes of this video to get to here. I had watched this video before a couple of days ago when somebody asked for some help and I was trying to educate myself. But that's where I'm going to make my decision. And if you look in my radio here real quick.
So what I did, I came in here and I just put in mixes on channel 10, this 6-position switch right here, and on channel 12 I put SB, this here. This has always been for rovers, quads, planes, hexes, would be for boats, whatever. This is return to home for me, pulling that one straight down with my thumb. I'm just used to that on every platform.
So now we can come over here. Oops, not yet. I have to plug in the battery. Keep forgetting that because I'm not used to having to plug in the batteries to get receivers to come up. I've chose most flight controllers for myself where they bring up the GPS and the RX receiver, but not the video transmitter. That's the way I prefer it. So now we'll calibrate. Just going to make sure real quick. Yep. Okay. So this is my calibration. Calibrate radio. This is something that no matter what it is. Here's my ailerons. Right and left for roll. I'm doing a little pitch in there too accidentally as I do it. Here's pitch. Here's yaw. And here's throttle. All on the 4 joysticks. Just as normal as anything on the planet that I'm used to for airplanes. Actually, the roll and the pitch and everything throttles for quads too, isn't it? Now I'm going to go through the 6 steps of my mode button, which will be on RC10 up in the upper right. And then I'm just going to go back down through the 6 steps. That's going to be a little difficult. I think they're just looking for a 3-position switch for this. And my return to launch is 2 down from that on 12. There's halfway on up, and there's fully up. Back down. So there's 12. So right now I can come in here real quick and user parameters. RC10. Oops. RC12 is return to launch. And that might be Q return to launch or something like that in the future. And in here, flight modes. Let's see if this will get it. Flight mode channel is 10. That should do it. I think I'm sort of caught up with the documentation. Let's see. So I got to here, and truthfully, I calibrated 6 channels. I could have made a mistake there. Might be okay. Who knows? It'll all come out in the wash anyway. I got enough of the control channels 1 through 4 where, and if I've got my mode working, which I'll have to work on a little bit later before we completely shut this down. I didn't even set up the modes in Mission Planner yet. We'll get by with this. So, then displays completed after you do your radio calibration. You have completed the Ardu Pilot Mission Planner setup. No, you haven't, but for now we have. Now this goes into the physical build of the platform. I don't really think I need to go through this in my videos, in my humble opinion. So I think we can go to part 2. I think I still have a few minutes left in this video. I'll do all of this. Here's one pertinent part. That elevator port after it comes through the tail boom with that little piece of wire that pulls your signal wires through it for you. Nice that they sent that tool. I'll use that tool in other models too, believe me. I'm happy to have that. I'd pay them $10 for a tool like that. Everybody needs a new tool. So you plug the elevator into S2. Like I say, I have S1 through S8, which are now full of something. That's why I don't want to put modes or anything on the channel like that. This S9 does not exist on my controller. Don't understand, but it doesn't physically. And then I'm in right here with my RCN, just like they say. Negative to the rear of the aircraft. It talks about connecting the motor wires, putting in the battery holder. This is all, again, part of the physical build. I don't think anybody going to have much problems with this part. Here we are putting on the wings. Fixing the canopy latch. Installing the propellers. This is talking about correct rotation, left or right side of the airplane. The propeller on the tail boom goes counterclockwise. I don't know. I think this means they rotate towards the fuselage. This isn't very... Oh, let's consider this is in... quad mode. We're looking down on it because it looks like the motors here are tilted up. So this left motor is going to be clockwise and the other two are going to be counterclockwise. That's the way I'm going to set it up. We'll see. If it flips upside down, then we'll go back and punt and try again. And here we are again. Build is complete, although we all know it's not at all. So I don't think I need to go through all that with you. The rest of this talks about the wiring and the fact of the three modes they have pre-configured in their flight controller is Q loiter, fly-by-wire A, and Q return to launch. So there's no regular return to launch in airplane mode for it to come and circle above you. I don't know that a VTOL aircraft with VTOL firmware can do that. It might not like that at all. I have no idea. That's one of the reasons I wanted this airplane, so I could work all that out. I'll have to set these up, and because I've got it on a 6-position switch, I'll have to do a mix. And I might as well set up 3 other modes because I really would like to have a manual flight mode if that's possible. I'll have to look at the Q plane documentation. Is that possible? So there's stuff that's outside of this documentation that needs to be done. This is some other things they're using. Rudder arming. They're setting the arming checks to 0, which means check nothing. I won't be doing that in the end, but I will at first to fly it their way. What else down through here? RSSI, they don't really have an RSSI pad or anything on this flight controller, so you either have to do it through the PWM, which the ELRS receiver I use, I don't think it has. It may have an RSSI pad on it someplace. I don't know. I haven't looked at it that deeply. But it certainly doesn't have a pin to do PWM RSSI, so I might not be doing RSSI at first. This talks about the flashing of the LEDs down in here. This goes back and rehashes with you the alt config 1 for serial protocol, 23 for ELRS, and if you want to do the S-Bus, I-Bus, or PWM up here, it talks about that again. And now we're at the bottom of this. So I don't see a lot of other that it's telling me to do in this documentation. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and break this video here. I'll render it so I can publish it, and I'll start the physical build of putting everything together. And when I get it all 100% together and I'm ready to modify or look at this right here again with you guys, stuff like this right here, the arming check and arming required, and do you use rudder to arm and disarm or not. I'll come back to this. We'll discuss a little bit of mission planner setup, enough to get this thing in the air, at least basics. And then I'll come back and I'll probably be modifying a bunch of things. I also will eventually, after a few flights, want to put a walk snail on it. I'm not going to put FPV in it right now, and do a lot of other things like that, and basically rebuild this whole thing. I would rather rebuild it with a different flight controller, honestly, but that's way in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and publish what we've got now, and probably see you again tomorrow, because it's getting towards 8 o'clock exactly. I really do want to finish the physical build tonight, so I'm going to render the video, publish it while I build it, and hopefully I'll finish the physical build tonight and be ready tomorrow to pick up. And I don't know if I have a battery suitable around here. I hope I do. I should at least have a small one. Maybe we'll see this thing fly tomorrow. Thank you, guys.